On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder are that of the old Golden State Warriors? We'll discuss on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and Thunder on SI beat writer Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Check out Thunder on SI for all the written content from this game and beyond. Also, thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. You should also go check out Locked On NBA. We have Locked On NBA game nights following all of the action every single day, including myself on Saturday nights, recapping all of Saturday's slate. And we have our midday show with Matt Moore, Doug Branson, and Hayes going through the biggest topics around the NBA Monday through Friday. So check it out for a double dip show on that feed. Now, let's get down to the brass tacks. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Go check out FanDuel. Make every moment more with a big return at FanDuel. New customers get $5, and when you do, you'll get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that $5 bet by visiting FanDuel.com. When you look at this Thunder team, they pull off another dominating win. We're going to talk about beating the Hawks. We're going to talk about Shai and Chet and Oos and everyone else who played really well in this game. But I think this Thunder team resembles that of the Golden State Warriors in their primes, at their best, at their peak. And I know that's going to be met with dramatic pushback, rightfully so. We saw those teams win 73 games. Like, we saw those teams do historic things, including winning a championship, which we have not seen the Thunder do. We've seen the Thunder play 3 games. So I hear you. I can type the comments for you. But anyone can dub it that once the season is over. But what we're seeing within this season is the same type of wins and the same type of feeling. Do you remember that feeling you had watching those Golden State Warriors? It was inevitable. Like, yeah, it's cute. You might keep it close on ABC prime time, but in the end, the Warriors are going to go on a run. It's the same thing with this Thunder team. It just happens in different ways. Sure, you're not going to get the explosive 16 straight triples from limitless range, and the scoring output is just jaw-dropping. But the avalanche is still going to come. 3 games, 3 avalanches, despite poor circumstances. They start the season playing 3 games in 4 nights without their biggest signing in free agency history for the team, and Isaiah Hartenstein, without any backup center, period. Ousmane Dieng is your backup center, and this is what you do to teams, including on the second night of a back-to-back, 3 games in 4 nights. And if you only check the scoreboard, you think that the Thunder absolutely dominated the Atlanta Hawks. How this game gets talked about Monday, you'll know who watched the game and who didn't. The Hawks were in a 2-possession game in the 4th quarter against this Thunder team. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The Thunder went on from that point to win 128-104 in what was garbage time. Garbage time. Because the avalanche came. And it's going to come every single game. Because you look at this team, and how is it coming? It's coming via effort and defense. 2 things that are way more controllable than shooting. Of course, for those Warrior teams, when you have Steph and Clay, and then you add Kevin Durant, like, of course, for those teams, you could more rely on shooting than anyone else, and it was more predictable than it is variant for other teams. But it's the same way with this Thunder defense. Every single night, this Thunder team has proven over the course of 3 years now that they're going to bring effort, intensity, and defense. And now you actually have the defenders in place to be a historically great defense after being top 5 offense and defense a year ago and winning 57 games a year ago. You truly have upgraded this roster. I don't think that there's any dispute about that. And you haven't even seen one of your biggest upgrades in Hartenstein play a single minute. But what this Thunder team does is, despite ending the night shooting 49% from the floor, shooting 40% from three, shooting 75% at the line, that does not wash away how laboring this offense was in the first quarter and the whole first half, really. And so you get down by 10 on the second night of a back-to-back, missing 3 key rotational pieces. And after a year ago, you started 2-1 in that same season, and it was the same route to get there. I mean, last year's 2-1 start was, you're playing a home opener on a Sunday on the second night of a back-to-back, and you laid an egg against Denver. So once you get down 10, it's that awful funny feeling of like, yeah, this might not go their way because of the schedule. However, the Thunder use a very simple recipe, and it's not as flashy, and it's not arguably as fun, although you can argue about how fun defense is. It's arguably not as fun as bombing triples and just being left breathless by the distance of which the threes are going in and how often they're going in. But it is simple and effective. They're going to outwork you. They're going to out-hustle you. And they're going to have their defense bide them time until their talent can take over because, oh yeah, they're also more talented than you. Typically, when you talk about your defense needing to keep you in a game, you're talking about brewing an upset and trying to pull one off. No, this Thunder team can lean on their defense to keep them around, keep them hanging in it, until the guys who are already better than you see their shots fall and get it going. And more often than not, guys like Shai are going to get it going. Shai absolutely took over this game in the second half. You've seen what Chet's done early on this year. You know what J-Dub's capable of. So that defense holding them into games and keeping them into games, I don't know how you beat this team. And again, I'll say they're not going to go 82-0. But man, they can be one of those teams that we look back on and talk about as that was just a purely dominant team, one of the all-time great teams. And again, it's 3 games in. So you're typing away already in the comments about how irrational and how silly that this is right now. But anyone can call their shot in April after the season's already over. But I really believe that this team, who's going to get better in 5 to 6 weeks whenever Hartenstein returns, and even in however long it takes for J-Will and Kenrich to return, this team's going to get even better than this, and they're already pretty good. And it's not out of the realm of possibility for a team who is widely expected to win the West to have one of these all-time seasons. I would consider Boston's team a year ago one of the all-time seasons. They didn't win 73 games, but I mean, no one wanted to play them night in and night out, and you were in for a tall task going up against them. And in this game, the Thunder forced 19 turnovers, and they held the Hawks to shooting 39% from the floor, 32% from three, and 75% from the charity stripe. You would not have known who had the rest advantage unless I told you, and it was Atlanta. And the Thunder weather 3 ties and 11 lead changes in this game, but it can all be boiled down to the final 2 minutes of the first half. When the Thunder flat out erased a 10-point deficit, which was capped off by Jalen Williams, one of your top 3 stars on this team, racing in and outworking the Atlanta Hawks for a Chet Holmgren air ball to put it back at the horn. And then the frustration just mounts with every deflection, with every turnover, with every possession that gets bogged down. The frustration just mounts and overcomes you. And they just take your will. The Thunder in this game were undisputedly the smaller team, a team with the hand behind their back in terms of size. They lost the rebounding battle by 4. Like, that is just pure effort. They had 2 more points in the paint than Atlanta did. And surprisingly, more to the point, the Thunder had 2 less fast break points than Atlanta, and neither team got into double figures in that category. But it was the relentless nature of the Thunder that coupled their talent with their effort to get over the hump And again, people are going to be fooled. Like, people tomorrow are going to be talking about this team as if they ran Atlanta out of the gym and just railroaded them. It was a 2-possession game. And it was over by the time that the t-shirt toss happened at the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter. It was over. Well over. And this is the Thunder's first 3-0 start since 2016. And look, in that year, they lost their next 3 games. So perhaps all of you in the comments that are risk averse will look back on this and have a funny video. But I do believe that this Thunder team can be one of those teams we look back on and say, man, that was a special season. So you should enjoy it, and you should really think about like what we can potentially witness here over the next few months. Coming up, SGA takes over. Why the Thunder shooting more threes? Chet Holmgren, J-Dub, Ooze. We're going to talk about it all from today's show. But first, want to tell you right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Go check out FanDuel because you can get ready to tackle more NFL action, college football, or the NBA at America's #1 sports book, which is FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So you can go there and check it out today at FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. You can do it in the middle of the game if you get a hunch. You can also just do the spreads, player props, over-unders, all pregame. Go visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And while the line is not quite out yet for Wednesday's game against the Spurs, which will be a big one, you can still bet on Monday's slate, which includes the Denver Nuggets, who we have some concerns about being 8.5-point favorites in Toronto. Also, a big Bucks-Celtics matchup. Cleveland getting their first test of the season against New York. Cleveland is 2.5-point underdogs in Madison Square Garden. Go check it out today at FanDuel. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Make sure that you check out Locked On NBA for everything national, including our national midday show Monday through Friday, and also our game nights recap show after every single slate of NBA basketball. Now, let's talk about the Hawks game as SGA had a near triple-double and absolutely took over this game in the second half. I feel for Dyson Daniels because the box score is not going to indicate just how good he was defensively, but it wasn't good enough to no fault of his own. Sometimes you just tip your cap, and when you're playing a player like Shai, who put up 35 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, 3 impressive blocks, especially in help coverage, 3 for 8 from the floor, 11 for 24 from the 3 for 8 from the 3-point line, 11 for 24 from the floor. I think that the biggest conversation from Shai, while he's awesome, while we can spend all year long, and we did all last year, talking about the intricacies of his drives and his mid-range jumper and everything else, the most pressing conversation right now is about Shai, and it spans out to the whole team. And that is, why are you taking so many threes? And you see this especially early in games when shots aren't falling immediately. There's this sense and growth of panic over social media of anytime a 3-point shot is missed, you're going to hear the phrase, why'd you settle for that 3-point shot? It's not settling. The Thunder are actually taking really quality 3-point looks despite not shooting the basketball very well this season at all until tonight where they shot 40%. But the last 2 games, they were dreadful. Frankly, they went back to the Polk administration. That was the shooting numbers from this Thunder team the first 2 games. And so it's going to be met with that resistance of why are you doing this? Why are you settling for threes? Much like every form of change is met with. And when you're looking at Shai and him taking more threes, it comes down to what we talked about all summer long and what was a unifying talking point all summer long of this team's primary focus needs to be the postseason. How do you get over the hump? How do you win a championship? Well, you just saw it. You win a championship by making threes and taking threes, and nobody on this roster was willing to take them last year. And at the end of the day last year, what you saw was the Thunder would have good looks from 3, and they'd pass it up and work for a great shot, and that great shot never comes around because it's the playoffs, and it's a half-court game, it's a more physical game, it's a more defensive game. Those great shots that you can get at will in the regular season help you not in the postseason whenever everybody's actually engaged and playing defense. So sure, the Thunder could go out there and get to the rim at any given moment, and they could really have things firing offensively, but it doesn't help reach your end goal as a team or as an individual. Think about this with Shai, and then we're going to branch it out to the whole team. If Shai literally adds a three-point shot, as he's talked about, as he's worked on, as he's changed his shot, if he truly adds a three-point shot to his arsenal, if you thought he was unguardable a year ago, how do you guard him now? Because the one thing you could do was use the pickup point, around the elbow, like, start at the elbow, feel it out. Is he going to drive? Is he going to be in the mid-range? And it still wasn't enough because he dropped 30 points a night on good efficiency and was the, runner-up for MVP. So it still wasn't good enough, but at least you could do that. But if he's taking threes, where do you pick him up at? Because if you pick him up too high, he's going to blow right past you to the rim. If you don't respect the three-point shot, he's going to pull up and nail it. He becomes truly unguardable with a three-point shot. And then if you span this out to the whole roster, while I hope that the other young players on this team are willing to shoot the ball more, because for as much as you can bellyache about PJ Washington, the way you get a PJ Washington three-point shooting series and an outlier series is by taking the shots. And the Thunder were not taking the shots last year. So while you can complain about that, and while you can hope that the rest of the roster will fix that issue, the controllable is that Shai himself, that Chet himself, that J-Dub himself, these top guys on the team, and then it trickles down to the rest of the roster, are changing the way things look and are shooting more threes. And sure, it's been ugly for 2 of the 3 games. And again, they shot 40% tonight. But it's been ugly for 2 of the 3 games. But the end result, I think, will pay dividends because they really are generating good threes. This is not a team who had it in their mind that we're going to shoot threes and they're doing it at any cost. These are open looks. For example, Isaiah Joe is not shooting well this season. Isaiah Joe is taking the same quality of shots, if not better, than he was a year ago. They're just not going in. And none of us believe that they won't be going in come Thanksgiving. So these things kind of take time, but I think that, yes, I hear the point of Shai could have had 40 tonight if he just went to the rim. And that's true. It doesn't get you any closer to your end goal. It just does not get you any closer to where you want to go. Let's talk Chet. I think that this was one of Chet's most impressive games this year, not only because it came in the third game of 4 nights in a back-to-back, which is in a vacuum hard enough, but this particular matchup with no backup big, where you have Trae Young probing the lane, and you've got to worry about playing higher up on screens a little bit to kind of combat Trae, but also he can get into the lane and float one over you. And then you have Clint Capella, who's a load and a half, and Okongwu, who's incredible, I think. I think that he's going to really blossom with no backup big behind you. This was a really tough task. And he showed up. 25 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, 6 blocks. His ability to impact multiple shots in a possession is just absolutely backbreaking. It just has to take the soul of offenses, because to even arrive at the point where he's altering your shots, you've bobbed and weaved through Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Shai, J-Dub, Aaron Wiggins. You've finally gotten to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and the leprechaun takes it from you. I mean, it is just super difficult. And so I just think that it's really important that he not only can be the rim reaper, as Joel Lorenzi likes to say, and have 6 blocks, but even the deterrence of like multiple shots deterred in one possession is really impressive. 3 for 5 from 3. And this is what we talked about a little bit just now and what we harped on yesterday. Chet had not made a 3 to that point in the season, entering tonight's game, but they were all just spectacular looks and looks that you really want to get Chet Holmgren, to take. He took them tonight 3 for 5, including he got fouled on 1 3 where he went to the line. So he was stellar, and he's been awesome all year. I mean, he's really played the part of an all-star, and if this is who he is in year 2, which I think it is, he'll be an all-star. He'll be in San Francisco. and his next game is against Wemby, and he has a couple days off to recover. And you know how seriously he takes the Wemby matchup, even if he says all the right things, to us, and he publicly presents the right face. You can just tell him on the court the edge he plays with against Wemby is different, and that will be a fun game on national television. We'll have it for you here, recapping it afterward. J-Dub got 20 points with some critical makes, and I think that the whole trio played really well. Obviously, Shai and Chet louder than J-Dub, but J-Dub still did some really nice things in this game. But also, Lou Dort and Ousmane Dieng and Caruso were really, really good. Plus, Ajay Mitchell still getting heavy rotational minutes. But first, want to say right now about our good friends over at Gametime. I love, love, love Gametime. Go check them out today because I think that the perfect time to use Gametime is in the NBA season. Why? Glad you asked. In the NBA season, you know that we don't quite know who's going to play until right before tip-off. With the injury reports, with late scratches, is your favorite player going to play? Gametime has you covered with last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Go check them out today at Gametime. And I love a couple of features. Number one, the all-in pricing. You toggle that feature on and you get everything right up front so you know exactly what you're going to pay. The view from your seat is key if you're going to travel around and watch your team on the road. I know that a lot of you OU fans are making SEC road trips. This is a nice way to get a view from your seat for the opponent. You can also go check them out today at Gametime by downloading the Gametime app, creating your account, and using code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. But again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Go download that Gametime app today. And when you do, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. What time is it? Gametime. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe to Locked On Thunder anywhere you get your podcast from. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Let's talk Lou Dort. Physical on defense in this game. Even called for 5 fouls for better or worse. I think that the officiating left a lot to be desired in this game. They were tech happy. They were inconsistent. Doesn't really matter. That's kind of life in the league, obviously. So I thought that Lou Dort, within the constraints of what he was tasked with, of course, Trey is a heck of a heliocentric offensive player. Lou, heck of a defender. But what I loved was Lou Dort's shot diet. 16 points, 2 boards and an assist, 4 for 6 from 3, 1 shot, 1 make from inside the arc. Only 1 3 was even questionable, and I still think it was a good look. Like, Lou came so far as an efficient offensive player from where he began his career and even where last season began. Heading into last season where that began. And just keep continuing to up that efficiency offensively mixed with what he does defensively is really big. Alex Caruso, his impact goes far beyond the 2 points he scored. I said this on the OKC Dream Team, which you can go subscribe to on Patreon. Alex Caruso needs his own stat. David Locke popularized, invented screen assists with Rudy Gobert to defend his guy. Rudy Gobert, of course, the owner of this network, my boss, my good pal, Locked On Jazz host, David Locke. And that was an awesome way to represent something that typically is not represented. You have the LeBron stat, you have Raptor, you have all these advanced stats, and someone much smarter than me, I don't know how to do all this stuff with the mechanical engineering. Someone much smarter than me should invent a Caruso stat. Because I've got news for you. The Josh Giddey fans, and there are many, are still hanging around the comments, still chirping a little bit. And I think that Josh Giddey is going to have a great career in Chicago. But I still believe that despite the counting stats being lopsided in Josh Giddey's favor, that the production and the quality of team that the Thunder are is far superior than last year because of what Caruso brings. He is blowing up possessions on each end, defensively, I should say, with just massive deflections and steals and blocks. And just what he does defensively is massive. And then he's impactful on each end with offensively being he's helped facilitate as a connective playmaker, which is what I harped on all summer long. Yes, Josh Giddey, a much better passer is just if you put him in a skills contest. But if you put him within the construct of an offense and you are going to use one of them off ball, Caruso's a much better off ball passer. and he's able to space the floor and force teams to play straight up on Chet. That's huge. The fact that you can no longer plant your center in the paint and put a more athletic player on Chet is what is helping, on top of Chet's own personal development, it's what's helping Chet reach this next step. And I think that Caruso is a big part of that. So Caruso deserves a massive hat tip, despite the box score not screaming at you. Wiggins gets the start tonight. 3 games, 3 different starters. A stark contrast from a year ago, where they had the same starting 5, and of course, Giddey had a 218 game starting 5, starting lineup streak that was snapped in the playoffs. So like it was a very constant starting 5 with the core 4 and Josh last year. Now it's been the core 4 plus. You've seen Wiggins tonight. You've seen Kaysen yesterday. You saw Joe in game 1. Wiggins has always been good at this area of getting to his spots and getting to the rim. He's taken another leap at that of getting to his spots inside with 9 points, 1 board, 1 assist, and even only 1 miss. His versatile defense lets you play smaller, where you can have quote unquote 5 guards out there, and Wiggins kind of helps you maneuver that. We'll have this conversation tomorrow. I think it's a larger conversation than the final few minutes of this show, but I am a huge Wiggins supporter. Everyone who's listened to the show for more than a year knows that. I don't think that he should start, and it's to no fault of his own. It's because of what he can do for that bench unit, and it's no fault of Wiggins or how he performed in this game. We'll talk more about that tomorrow on the show. Ajay Mitchell, 13 minutes in this game. 13 minutes. And again, this was a close game. People are going to think that was garbage time. It was a close game. And he was playing really impactful defense in a 2-possession game. But he might take the reins as the secondary table setter. And this part, I think, is getting ahead of ourselves, putting the cart before the horse here. It's because we've only seen, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 13 minutes. We've only seen it sparingly from a second-round player. But I'm monitoring Ajay Mitchell as my biggest question all summer has been, what do you do with that secondary creator? Because you've fully fixed your front court depth. You solved the Josh Giddey question. The only question you didn't immediately answer of like, hey, here's the answer right in front of your face is Ajay Mitchell. Is the secondary creator, which I think Ajay Mitchell can play a part of. And we were wondering all summer, is it going to be AJ? Is it going to be Caruso? Will it be Kaysen? Will it be Hartenstein in the high post as a playmaking hub? Who is going to take the reins as a secondary creator? I think it could be Ajay Mitchell, who got 3 assists, 3 boards, and a block in this game. He had that lob to Chet with the N1 dunk. That was really, really good. Cannot leave here. This is the last subject. Cannot leave here without Ousmane Dieng talk. Ousmane Dieng has just been so much better offensively. Like the offensive force he's playing with, the decisiveness and the decision-making is so much better from what it has been in his career. He's in the right spot defensively. And it's not been gaudy. It's not been just alarmingly great, but it has been a step up from where he's been. And it has been all rooted in making the right decisions, making the right reads, and doing everything by the book and playing within this system. And that's why I think it's so valuable for the Blue to play the same system as the Thunder, which they've done for Ous's entire career. I will leave you with this conversation from Ous. I think everybody has to agree he's gotten better. You cannot argue he's gotten worse, and you cannot really even argue he's the same player as he was a year ago. So he's gotten better. Whether you want to buy into it or not, or you still have reservations or not on Ous, that's perfectly within your right to have. My question is, however much you think he's improved, can he improve again this season just by nature of no longer needing to play the 5? Because playing the 5 is a tall task for him. I mentioned how he does that in the G League. It's totally different in the G League, and it's not as simple as that sounds. In the G League, it's much like summer league rosters. You're not really playing lumbering bigs. Most teams want 5 wings out there. Ball handlers, versatile forwards and guards out there. That's who they want out there, not some big oaf playing center, right? So, yeah, you can play Ous at the 5 in the G, and I think that they've done that a lot, with Cam Woods. But that's not really the 5. He's had to play Vucevic. He's had to go up against the Nuggets and their size, and the Hawks in this game and their size. Like, he's legit played the 5. And that's not who he is. That's not what he's supposed to be. That's not what they ever intended him to be. But you slide him to that power forward spot, and if he continues to play with force and decision making and yada yada yada, I think that Deuce could be a nice, depth rotation piece for this team. So let me know what you think about this game over the Hawks and the 3-0 start. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Thunder basketball. Until then, be good and be good to one another.